All right, so here is the demonstration on our mystery grid painting. What I have done is I have taken an image, I pixelated it, and then divided it into separate squares. You are going to get one of those squares. This is not the image. When everybody has finished their square and it gets put up on the wall, we will see what our mystery image is. So last year I did Bob Ross. Um, and you will get a card, an index card with your square taped on it. It is a 6x6 grid, and you're going to need to set that up on your paper before you can start. So I did that in a different video. Here it is. And this is a 6-inch by 6-inch grid, so that should make it fairly easy. If you are in class, you're actually going to get a piece of canvas paper. This canvas paper, one side is already gessoed and the other side is ungessoed. So you'll just kind of want to pay attention to that. You're going to make your grid, measure your grid on top of it. The other thing you're going to need if you're in class is a piece of palette paper. This is where we're going to be doing all of our mixing. And then since we're mixing so many different colors, you're going to throw it away at the end of class and then just use a new one. So if you're mixing today, probably we only need half of this. And we could cut it later. If you need the whole thing, great. The other thing that's going to be useful is to think about our color wheel. So if you want to have your color wheel sitting right next to you, you can do that. So why do I want my color wheel? I want my color wheel because I need it to help me figure out how to mix the right color. And usually what happens is we can mix close enough color, but we need to make it a little bit more dull by adding the complement. So for instance, the one that I'm going to be doing has these peachy colors in it. And you need to be able to observe very closely and kind of see how these boxes are a different color than those boxes. So when you paint those on here, they're also going to be a different color. But mainly, this is my base color. I want to mix up a lot of this. And then if I mix up a lot of that and I save it on this palette, I can do my mixing on my palette paper of these other ones. But if I look over here, it is darker. It is a darker version of this. So what I'm going to do to get a darker version is not just add black or gray. I'm going to try to mix in the complementary color of that color. So if I go here, I can look at my color wheel. So this is mainly an orange. It might be maybe more of a red orange somewhere. It has a lot of white in it. And then as I make the darker versions, I'm going to make it duller. So this is a grand experiment. This is difficult to do. You're going to be mixing up a lot of different colors, and it's going to be a lot of testing. So the first thing I want to do is kind of get that base kind of peachy color, and I determined it's like a red violet. So because I know there's a lot of it, I'm going to mix up a lot. So starting with the color on the color wheel, like I said, is more of a red violet, maybe not a red violet, orange. Red orange. Woo! It's Friday, y'all. So it's more of a red orange. I'm going to start there. And I know it's very light. So I know that I'm going to have to add a lot of white into this. So I'm going to start adding white. Sometimes with something so light, it is easier to add the color into white rather than white into the color. So again, like I talked about in the last video, I want to mix everything together on my palette first. When I think I have the right color, I'm going to test it. I'm going to test it right next to that. And I think I've got it. So once I have the correct color, I'm going to go paint it on my square, my larger squares. So one thing to keep in mind, where is the up arrow? So we need to have an up arrow. We need to know what number we're working on. So this is 15. No, it's not. It's number 7, and this is up. So make sure from time to time as you paint these that you are working in the right direction. Now, as this is drying, it's important to let it dry because it changes colors. I am now noticing this is actually more of that row. So I'm going to go paint that row. Now, here's the nice thing about acrylic. If I need to, I can paint over it. It should be fairly opaque. These squares are all even color. So that means I want to use a larger brush probably. I'm going to get all the way up to the edges. Ultimately, I don't really want to see my pencil line. So that might require that I do a couple layers of this color. So as I painted over here in a larger section, it's starting to look maybe a little too pink and not enough orangey. I might have to add a little bit more yellow as I add the second layer. But again, I'm going to let it dry because it does change. Now, it won't take very long to dry if I'm doing these thin, even layers. If I am using huge globs of paint, it's going to take a very long time to dry. I can even, since I have many of them, I can even paint right on top of it. And I notice it's a little bit too pinkish. I think it has to get a little bit more dull. It seems to be about the right value. So the opposite of red-orange, if I look on my color wheel, is a blue-green. So I'm going to go find a little bit of a blue-green, just the tiniest amount of blue-green because it is so light. Any color that you add to this very light tint will make a dramatic change. So go easy. And like I said, if this first layer is not just the right color, I can paint right over it. Now you might not be able to see a difference, but up close and personal, I can see that it is a little bit duller, a little bit less pink. And adding the second layer is making it more opaque so I don't see those pencil lines. So that's how you go about it. Keep testing here. Use your palette for mixing smaller amounts, things that you might not need to save. Use your larger palette for bigger amounts of paint that you want to save from class period to class period.